fascinating dynamic that takes us to a certain extent beyond the ambit of the course. We can't look into all of these things, but you should be aware that the movement, the Judaizing movements within Christianity, one sees, for example, with the Seventh-day Adventists gathering on Saturday, keeping the modified form of the Old Testament dietary code. You see the Mormons, not really Christian, but for this purpose, it's important. They create a temple. They build a temple, multiple temples, right? To restore temple worship. They have a priesthood, Aaronic priesthood, and so forth. What's going on there in these Protestant traditions that have seemingly eschewed ritual and eschewed all of these cultic categories that would normally, you would find quite comfortably ensconced within Catholic and Orthodox traditions, seem to feel the need to recreate them or recover them, right? We need to recover, and where do they look? Well, the only place to look if you're an evangelical, you have the Bible, is the Bible. So you look in the Old Testament, you say, well, they had circumcision, maybe we should try that. They had a temple, maybe we should try that. They worshiped on Saturday, maybe we should try that. They kept this, they kept this dietary code, let's try that, right? And the phenomenon of Christian Seder suppers, which you may have come across among some evangelicals and some Catholics, Roman Catholics, Eastern Christians don't generally go in for this, is again another sort of a contemporary instantiation, I think, of this principle that we never get too far away from the Old Testament. And when we do, something seems not right. And so we have to go back and pick it up again. There was an early heresy by a guy named Marcion in the 2nd century. He said, yeah, we don't need this Old Testament God. We don't like him. He's nasty. We just want the New Testament, the loving God, of the Father of Jesus. And the church rejected that and said, no, if we get rid of the Old Testament, we cut off the branch on which we sit, right? But how exactly we interpret the Old Testament, how it is relevant for us, has always been a great matter of debate. The Alexandrian churches tended to give a very spiritual interpretation to Old Testament things. They had allegorical interpretation, seeing them as speaking about the life of the soul, right? Broadly speaking, the Antiochian interpreters tended to look for more visible, more obvious typologies. Well, the crossing of the Red Sea is a figure of baptism, right? The slaughter of the Paschal lambs, a figure of the slaying of the Lamb of God in the liturgy. It was a Syrian Pope, Sergius I, there were Eastern Christians who were popes in the first millennium, who introduced the Agnus Dei into the Western Mass, Lamb of God, who takes away the sin of the world. Have mercy on us, grant us peace. So as the churches develop, they latch on to different bits and pieces of the Old Testament. And what you'll discover as you hope as the course unfolds is that each of the Eastern churches, and the West too, has done this in a slightly different way, right? Most of us are familiar with the Eucharistic liturgy. The priest says, lift up your hearts, right? We lift them up to the Lord, something like that, right? And the Chaldeans and the Assyrians, when the priest says, hearts up, they say, to you, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Whoa, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? Why are we talking about the Old Testament patriarchs? Well, in fact, in many respects, the Assyrian and Chaldean churches are quite conscious of their Semitic roots. And it would seem that many of the earliest members of these churches were Jewish converts, Jewish Christians like the apostles, who caused many Jewish customs to be retained even after that initial consciousness of being Jewish had faded. Syrian Christians today don't think they're Jews, but they are Semites, and they speak a Semitic language, Syriac, Arabic, and they're conscious of having these practices which demonstrate the proximity of their faith with that of the Old Testament. Western Christians have these things too, as well, to be sure. But as I said, the movement in the West, especially after the Reformation, was to sort of move further and further away from these connections, till almost people felt the need to snap it back. Like a slinky, it can only move so far before the rest has to catch up, or an elastic band that has to snap back in place. And I think we see in the 19th century American religion, as I mentioned, examples of the Mormons and Seventh-day Adventists and others, and then Messianic movements in the 19th and 20th century, people attempting to kind of hold all these pieces together and coming up with a different formula.